Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jere B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. Welcome to the introduction of a new series here at the EntreMusician. In fact, this is something that is brand new to this podcast channel for us. You know, most of our focus usually zeroes in on other EntreMusicians in their own spaces who are making a difference in the world. But in the next few episodes, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the lenses inward and share some of my backstage story, personally and professionally, especially deeper into my musician mindset, more so than the entrepreneurial. And additionally, I'll be taking you on a journey I'm about to embark on with my friends Dave Enninger and Danny Jones from Across the Road Studios down in Katy, Texas. I've interviewed them both separately before, and within this series, you'll be seeing more of them. I don't know, 3, 4, maybe 5 other episodes. I'll tell you why in just a few moments. But first, there are those episodes in the past where I share personal stories and experiences about my life and career. One in particular I would recommend is 7 mistakes that I've made as a band member. Check that one out. And another one would be 7 ways to raise your voice. By the way, the number 7 in both of these videos are incidental only. However, I do share a lot of personal stuff in them. But if you're new to this podcast, first of all, welcome. And secondly, I don't want you to have to go on a hunt for what I can share with you in the next few moments as a snapshot of my life and career to catch you up to speed so I can better explain where I'm going. Now, firstly, you may already know that I am a Christ follower. My life, my interests, businesses, and music is wrapped around my faith. And often enough in checking out this podcast, you will hear such references both in my speech and from our guest EntreMusicians and fellow hosts who occupy this space. Secondly, I am very happily married to my bride of 28 years, Lori Lynette. Together, we have raised our 3 beautiful daughters who are now adults and are empty nesters, Lori and I, enjoying the season of our lives immensely. I began my musical life very young. I'm very young. I became engrossed in music. It was all I wanted to do. From playing drums in my local church to getting involved in a band while I was in the 5th grade with 4 friends who are still my brothers today, Tyrone, Chris, Craig, and Eugene. In 2002, I put a band together entitled Sound Doctrine. Go to sounddoctrine.com to learn more. We went on to record 6 projects. A few solo projects, including my own, were in the mix. We toured, and we saw one of our singles hit the Billboard Contemporary Jazz Top 10 list, which was a great time. In 2018, in between recording projects, because of my background in radio, I made the natural migration into podcasting. I really didn't have a vision other than to talk about music, and I figured the best place to begin would be to talk about my mistakes. So if a younger musician, or any musician for that matter, if they listened to my mistakes and they could avoid the ignorance and stupidity I engaged in, they would more than likely succeed. Now, I had read Dave Ramsey's book, EntreLeadership, a year or 2 before that, and I was so inspired by this book that I figured if I utilized the principles and values in Dave's book, I would be an EntreMusician. So that's what I named the podcast. I mean, I had no other vision or strategy. Again, while I was in radio, I was an on-air DJ at a small AM radio station here in Youngstown, Ohio, WGFT 1500, and I was also the producer for the Dan Ryan program for WKBN Radio. It was one of the biggest talk shows of that time. So I tried to pattern this podcast around interviews like Mr. Ryan was doing, while making sure I also shared valuable music business advice. It wasn't until I interviewed Vance Anderson and Linda Bolero on the EntreMusician, both absolutely incredible people, that the idea of this platform expanded. Once the 2020 shutdown was in full swing and all of our musical lives as we had once known them needed to be redefined, I found it necessary to build community as soon as possible. Once again, Vance and Linda in which I've yet to be in the same physical space with them. They were my first compadres in transforming the EntreMusician into a trusted resource where musicians could come and find solace, encouragement, advice, and opportunities for real collaboration. And later on, Daryl Looney, Robbie Cunningham, and many others grew the nucleus of our mastermind. Now, I will do more name dropping in a minute or two, okay, because we have several great EntreMusicians on our team. The foundation of our ideals began to revolve around mindset, discipline, and focus, which is a true mantra for me. First and foremost, if you were going to survive the madness of 2020, all three of these important elements better be intact with no excuses. And if you were going to build a music career from the ashes of COVID, misinformation, disinformation, and political upheaval in which we are still embroiled, you will need heavy doses of mindset, discipline, and focus, not just to survive, but to thrive. And again, this is where my faith kicked in. And in the midst of building the EntreMusician Network, building the website, the weekly podcast interviews, while continuing to write and record music, I began toying around with the idea of writing a book. Now, I had no notion that this book was going to become a million seller, and it hasn't yet, but it's selling pretty good. But I wanted to write this book as a way of convincing myself that I believed in mindset, discipline, and focus. Was this just a phrase that I was sharing with other EntreMusicians, or is there a core system involved? If so, I better find out what the heck it is. So in jumping deep into these topics, I discovered what became 9 keys which truly unlock your mindset, discipline, and focus. Start, believe, don't stop, trust, look, learn, give, forgive, and gratitude. These are the 9 sacred keys of unlocking your mindset, discipline, and focus. And talk about convincing myself. Once this book was completely finished and I sent the manuscript off to Amazon, I did the narration for the audiobook and the video series. And once I finally had this thing in my family room sitting on the shelf, I was so convinced about this book and about the message that Lori and I began talking about my leaving my day job, which had been in full-time ministry as an associate pastor in my church. Now, I remember, as I'm recording this episode, it happened a year ago, early September 2022. I sat in my senior pastor's office to tell him I would be leaving the staff on December 31st. And by God's grace, here I am, August 2023, still standing and grateful for the opportunity to do what I love. I love writing music and recording and producing for myself and for other artists. Doing this podcast is a joy. And as of August 24th, 2023, my Mindset, Discipline, and Focus course goes live at iClassical Academy, which is a very prestigious institute of higher learning for classical musicians around the world. They originate in Italy with extensions in Switzerland and the Netherlands. iClassical Academy Director Irma de Jong and Program Manager Gianricardo Pera have opened up another world to me, literally. I'm blessed to be signed to a few music libraries, expanding my writing for sync and film and TV. And in the midst of it all, again, by God's grace, I'm blessed to produce and host a TV show entitled Artist Impact, which features indie musicians from all over the world having their music reviewed by industry pros. I'm truly grateful and thankful to my God, to my wife. I'm thankful for you for investing your time into this platform and supporting our efforts to grow these ideas into transformative opportunities to benefit as many EntreMusicians as we can. That's what we're on point in doing. And I know that greater, larger, better, and more magnificent things are in store. Which brings me back around to Katy, Texas. You thought I forgot, right? But I didn't forget. In June, I attended the Springboard Conference hosted by my friend Barry Coffin down in Houston. All right. And you can scroll down to the episode on the podcast, my 7 takeaways from Springboard Houston. There's that number 7 again. But it was an excellent conference in everything, absolutely excellent, including the opportunity to meet and hang out with Dave and Danny, who were kind enough to take me to Across the Road Studios and experience the wonder for the very first time of Dolby Atmos. I was absolutely blown away. I'd heard about immersive audio and I was sitting in the middle of it. There's nothing like it. Unless you've experienced it, it wouldn't do me any good trying to describe it to you. Now, of course, when I came back home to Youngstown, as you could imagine, I saw Dolby Atmos conversations everywhere. And I sought out and began watching videos of engineers on both sides of the fence discussing the best and worst of the pros and the cons. As I stated previously, I interviewed both Danny Jones, who has worked with absolutely everyone in the business worth working with for decades. He's an absolute genius and the kindest man that I've met in a long, long time. Also, my interview with the astute, candid, and equally wonderful Dave Ettinger convinced me that Dolby Atmos is the future. Yet most recently, as you can recall, I interviewed engineer and producer Aaron Van Allen, and his thoughts on Dolby Atmos are completely counter. Although his studio, Dogmatic Studio in South Florida, is investing into the installation. There are other opinions concerning Atmos, which are nothing short of brutal. I'm sure you've heard some of them, especially for the end user, which was one of my main concerns initially. But the bottom line is I cannot deny what I experienced. I sat there as they played Earth, Wind, and Fire, Stevie Wonder, Al Green, songs I'd been listening to from my childhood, and I'm experiencing them as if they were in the studio with me. It's amazing. Or maybe I was in the studio with them. But you understand what I mean. They also played music from recent clients that was still being mixed, and I was nothing short of amazed. So again, back here in Ohio and thinking about the opportunity to have at least a portion of my music on the Dolby Atmos platform begin to overwhelm me. So I do what I do. I thought about it, I prayed about it, I talked with my beautiful lawyer about it, and I contacted Dave. We talked through the process and what the cost would be and the concerns that I had, and I decided to go for it. Now, here's where the dilemma comes in, and here's how you can help. I thought it best to pick music that Sound Doctrine had already recorded, to remix that in Dolby Atmos rather than creating a song from scratch, which I'm sure will happen in the future, but it would be easier to finalize this before the end of the year and take you on the journey with us. So here's what I'm asking. If you would, go to sounddoctrine.com. I will make sure to provide the proper spelling in the show notes for you. Go to sounddoctrine.com and pick out what you would choose from the Sound Doctrine discography to be the best tunes to experience Dolby Atmos, and let me know. If your choice is picked, we'll place your name among the official appreciation credits. I'll mention you, of course, here on this podcast, so please do this as soon as you can. Now, here's what you can expect in this series. Me taking you into my studios where I work, you watching me choose the songs and prep the tracks to be uploaded on their servers. Also, you getting a tour of Across the Road Studios down in Katy, Texas, watching Danny remix a portion of the songs, hearing them discuss the process, how they do what they do, and onward to the final steps of mastering. Even the boring procedures of filing the metadata and uploading them to the various platforms for placement. You'll be there for it all, including the opportunities for Zoom rooms where we can dialogue in real time. So that's what this podcast is going to turn into for the next 4, perhaps 5 episodes or so. It's going to be a lot of fun, so I want you to be included. Now, don't forget, please go to sounddoctrine.com, pick 3 songs, and let me know as soon as possible. Join us at the EntreMusician.com. I appreciate you being here with me today. My name is Jere B. I am the EntreMusician, but so is Jessica Jinks and Barbara Ward and Nathaniel Rhodes and Thomas Alexander and Buddy Jordan and Anna Nicholson and Nanad C and Terry Bay, Oviante Magsby, and many, many more. So are you. God bless, and we'll see you again next time. Peace.